Hi, everybody. This is Zen Honeycutt from Moms Across America, and we are coming at you live from Maui. And I want to thank you very much for tuning in. Moms Across America is a national coalition of unstoppable moms, and our motto is Empowered Moms, Healthy Kids. And we are committed to empowering millions to educate themselves about GMOs and related pesticides, to get GMOs labeled, and to offer GMO-free and organic solutions. And I was invited to Maui because of all the great work that all the moms all across America and now all across the world are doing, where you are rising up across the nation, you're becoming leaders, you're marching in parades, you're starting movie nights and speaker series, and you're tabling outside of grocery stores, and you're letting people know about GMOs. And this united force of passionate, caring women is making a statement around the world. And I've been invited to go many different places in the past year. It's been China, New Zealand, Australia, to Switzerland, to many different places in the US. And it's been extraordinarily exciting and also very, very disturbing at times. You know, one would think that you would go to Hawaii to escape reality. Instead, I'm here to get a huge dose of reality. And the reality is that Hawaii is ground zero for GMOs. This is the incubator, the womb for hundreds of different kinds of genetically modified organisms. Now, this means food, this means medications, and this means medications that are being put into food. And this is what's happening here on the island of Maui. They have over 1,000 test plots, actually in Hawaii, all of Hawaii, 1,000 test plots. And in comparison, there's only 100 in the state of California. And California is one of the largest agriculture states in the world. So you can see by those numbers that here in Hawaii, they're being inundated by GMOs and the related pesticides, because the majority of GMOs are engineered to withstand toxic chemicals. And here in Maui, it's been reported that they are spraying at least 80 different chemicals on any given day. And these chemicals are intermixed. They're in different combinations that are not reported. And those combinations can be in the millions of different kinds of combinations. And the problem with that is that the EPA never tests for combinations of chemicals. They only test for the active chemical ingredient in a product. And here in Hawaii, they're testing all different kinds of combinations in open air test plots. And that's what they call them here, open air experimental GMO test plots. And the problem with these test plots is that they're not far away from the homes. They can be right across the street, meaning within 30 or 40 feet even, from a home, from a child care center, from apartment buildings, from schools. And you can see from this view of that Jack is showing us right now, as I flew into Hawaii, you can see the test plots. First, it was very, very green and lush. And then all of a sudden we started seeing the fields. And this field is a little bit further away from homes, but some of these fields are right up against the homes. And it's windy here. Actually, I'm not outside right now because it is so windy all the time here. You can see, yeah, there's a brown test plot right across the street from a whole complex of homes. And I am not outside right now because it is windy all the time. The trade winds here blow continuously, and this is a sugarcane field, and you can see the sign. It says the Children's Center right there, right across the street from the sugarcane fields. Now, you would think that sugarcane fields are innocuous. I mean, they look pretty nice. It's just like tall grasses. You're thinking sugar is, well, it's not a bad food, but it's commonly used, and it looks, pretty harmless. But the problem is that this grows year round, and they spray the sugarcane with glyphosate, which is the active chemical ingredient in Roundup. And we all know now that it's been deemed by the World Health Organization as a probable carcinogen. And they've deemed, they spray glyphosate on sugarcane fields before harvest to dry it all very quickly. And then they harvest it. And what's left over, all the stubs, they have to burn that to the ground. So when they burn that, the glyphosate goes into the air, along with the smoke and along with any plastic tarp that might be on the ground where they farm, or any PCB pipes that they use for watering. So all the plastics and the chemicals go into the air with the smoke, which is right across the street from these homes and schools. And they don't warn them. They don't tell them when they're going to be doing this. And they do it several times a year because the growing season is quite frequent. And we've seen some pictures from other people that they've posted other times where it's just smoke. You know, it looks like a war-torn neighborhood, that these kids they have masks on, and they're going through this area where there's smoke, and they're going to their schools. So this was very disturbing for me to see this. I was just driving. Yeah, there's the other side of the street. So that's one side of the street of the sugarcane fields, and right across the street, you can see that house is right up against the sidewalk. So, I mean, you could take a couple, I don't know, was it maybe 100 feet or so from the fields. So, you know, as beautiful it is also very disturbing that these homes and schools are so close to the fields. Now, the other thing about these fields, it looks like, okay, so sugar, you know, not so bad, or in some area corn. But the problem is that the laws are that the chemical companies and these GMO seed companies only need to have permits for test plots that are 10 acres or more. So what they do is they put a less than 10 acre test plot right in the middle of the sugarcane fields or in the middle of the corn fields, so they can sneak in a test plot for a new type of genetically engineered product and not have to report it. The only thing they have to report is how they got rid of it, how they disposed of it, because it could be considered toxic, right? And they don't know. And so they do have to post somewhere, report somewhere where they dispose of this material afterwards. But it's pretty much voluntary. It's sort of like whenever you do it is whenever you do it. There's no requirement for that. So obviously the chemical companies here are able to do pretty much wherever they want, whatever they want, whenever they want, and to the tune of hundreds of new genetically modified products and plants that are, frankly, they're poisoning the residents. So this is Lauren. She's one of the biggest activists on the island. She helped create a a march back in September, right after I met her at a labeling training conference. She organized a march that had over 10,000 people march in Hawaii. So the activists here are very, very active. They are very aware of it. When they have marches, they get 3,000 people out at a time. And they are extremely well informed. Many of them are very young people, and are very aware of this, that the corporations are pillaging their island and their culture, and they are being poisoned by these corporations for the profit of the CEOs. Now, the other thing that I've learned that has been really disturbing is, thank you for showing that, Jack. So we want to tell the EPA, go ahead and show that slide again. We want to tell the EPA that they are not doing their job, not just here in the USA, but they're not doing the job here in Hawaii. They are sacrificing the Hawaiian people for the profit of these chemical companies. And this is unacceptable. I talk to moms with children that have asthma, that, asthma has never been in their family lineage, and they live 500 feet from the test plots, and now all of a sudden their children have asthma. There's another woman who has incredible migraines that last days at a time, and new studies out are showing that these migraines are connected to the to the estrogenic effects that can happen because of pesticides in the food. So we are seeing a lot of different type of health issues here in Hawaii. Some of them are also birth defects. The doctors are reporting 10 times the number of birth defects. And there's a condition called, I believe, gastrositis, where the intestines of the baby when they're born, are actually outside of the body. The intestines are literally not in the gut. And so they have to do multiple operations. It's extremely life-threatening, and they have to put the intestines back inside the gut and sew the baby up. And many times they can't do that here. They have to do it over in Arizona or somewhere on the mainland. So these birth defects are not even being recorded the way they normally would be here on the islands, because the operations are done in another hospital. This also happens with the workers that work on the farms of these test plots. It's hard to even call them farms because they're not growing food. They're not feeding the Hawaiians with these tens of thousands of acres. It might even be millions, but tens of thousands of acres at least of test plots. They're growing GMO seeds, which are then sold elsewhere. So all the majority of the GMO seeds that are grown are here in Hawaii because of the growing season. And they're testing putting drugs and medications inside of things like corn, so that when people eat it, then they get this medication, or that they can reproduce the medication and then take it out of the plant. Later it's used as an incubator for it, or they can test GMOs with multiple stacks, they call them, multiple traits. They're stacked with multiple traits. So that's what they're growing here. So this is one of the moms who started a magazine called Maui. Or Maui Mama, sorry. Yep, Maui Mama. And it's a really great little magazine. It's quite large. There's many pages. And she's got many articles on food, nutrition, wellness, exercise, different programs for school, fun, education, pregnancy center, cord blood bank. And there's an article in here about my talk. So that's really great. Let me see, I think it's right in the front. Well, actually the ad for the talk is on the back. I speak Thursday night at the Maui Cultural Arts Center. So you can see that has been sponsored by Shaka. The Shaka movement are the people that brought me here, and they're fantastic. They are so awesome. I absolutely love them. Okay, so here, yeah. Tammy did an article about Know Your GMOs 1 year later after the moratorium. And I got to meet Tammy, and she's extremely passionate and dedicated. And we are going to try to make sure to help her out because she's living right near the test plots and her kids are sick. And then there's an article here about me coming to Hawaii. And I have to say, it's a little bit intimidating because these are the most active activists in the world here in Hawaii, and I'm coming to speak to them. And what can I say? But I am going to speak from the heart, and I'm going to speak from our experience of what's happening in the United States, because what's happening here in Hawaii is what's happening in the States. It's just we're not quite as connected about it because we're so much bigger. And as a community, we're connected to more people who aren't sick, perhaps because they're just not sick, or maybe they're not aware of it, or they're just not aware of GMOs yet. But here in Hawaii, it's a smaller community, and many more people are aware of how many people are sick, and many more people are aware of the drift of pesticides and the corporate control. It's simply out of control here. These hardworking, dedicated activists passed a ban here in Maui for GMOs, and the ban was really only a temporary ban. It was simply ban them until these GMOs are proven safe, until they've gone through safety testing, and stop it until we know it's safe. And they passed this by a really wide, great margin, and the judge declared it not valid because they said the federal laws preempted the state laws. So Maui and Molokai are considered one state. So they said that the federal laws preempt the state laws. I'm sorry, no, Maui and Molokai are considered a county, and Hawaii, right, is considered the state. So they said that the federal laws preempt the state. And in any case, they didn't even count the votes. They didn't even register the votes. They didn't consider the votes of the people as valid. And so the local officials are corrupt, and they are not listening to the local people. They are not listening to what they need and want. They're not listening to the mothers with the sick children. They're not listening to the school teachers that see their children getting sick. They're not listening to the locals that, don't have children and may not be sick, but don't want to have their soil destroyed and their air polluted with toxic chemicals every day. So it's very disturbing. I have to say, it is very, very disturbing to be here. It's incredibly gorgeous. I'll show you. I don't know if you can see the view from out here. It's incredibly gorgeous. There's just beautiful foliage and palm trees everywhere. It's just gorgeous. But it's extremely disturbing, and it's very, very sad that the activists are working so hard, and yet the local officials are not listening to them. So, my angle in coming here is that they're us. This is us. Hawaii is America too, and the people here are literally giving up their health and their in some of their cases livelihood if they get so sick they can't work anymore, some of them, because the chemical companies want to make a profit. And it's absolutely unacceptable. And I'm going to be calling on every Hawaiian and anybody who knows any Hawaiian to vote every single one of these corrupt politicians out. They have to go. And the people that are elected must be people that will protect the people of Hawaii. So I understand that many Hawaiians want to separate from the United States because they believe the United States is not defending them, not protecting them. I completely understand that. But what I'm going to call for is that the people here actually embrace the democracy that is available when it's used correctly, and actually vote the politicians that are in office out, that they use their rights, they use their votes, they use their voice, and vote the people out who are not protecting them, and step up and be leaders and step into office and be the ones that will make the right laws. So, my husband says we have to stop appealing to the people in power and be the people in power. And I'm going to be asking for the Hawaiians that are here, that are leaders, that will do the right things for the people, to be the people in power and to step up and be elected for office and protect the people. So that's my report from Hawaii for now. I've met a lot of wonderful people, and I want to thank the Shaka movement and all of the supporters of the Shaka movement. Oh, here's the farm hands. They made some delicious food with it for us. They put some flowers on it. It was really incredible. We had lunch, and this was just before I interviewed about, probably 10 people yesterday. And we have a professional videographer putting together a wonderful video. And we had delicious food from this. This farm was in the jungle. It would not look like a farm to anybody else. These are called, I believe they're called jackfruit. And there are these huge fruit that you can cut up and put into all kinds of food. And I think she said it's sort of like a potato or a pear or something like that, a mixture of that. And there's just luscious fruit trees growing all over this jungle. And it's very random. They just have roads going through it. And they have people from Brazil actually educating the local farmers there. So they have people that are sort of like woofers that come and live on the farm, but they don't come and go. They stay for a long time, and they live in very rustic quarters in this farm where I was, and where all the interviews were held. That's the lunch house where we all gathered. It's just sort of like a corrugated metal on top of a bunch of wood. It was really quite rustic, but it was beautiful. And the farm hands and everybody that were there were just wonderful people. Some people drove 45 minutes to come and meet me and be interviewed. And I'm very, very grateful for them taking the time to do that. It really is such an honor to meet them. Yeah, and the foliage here is just gorgeous. I mean, it's just beautiful, wonderful. You would think that this would be the place where the government and the conservationists would be fighting tooth and nail to protect. This is one of the most lush and abundant and prolific horticulture areas in the world. and it's just incredibly gorgeous. And yet they're allowing all this land to be bought up by the chemical companies, because the chemical companies have money. And then of course they will pay some taxes somewhat, on buying up the land, and they will employ people. Now, the problem is actually they don't employ locals very often. There's a very small, I believe it's less than 2% or something. It's a very small percentage of locals that actually have jobs on these tens of thousands of acres of test plots here in Hawaii, because what they do is they import Filipinos. And when or if they get sick, these hired imported farmhands get sick, then they can send them back. So they don't register as getting ill here in Hawaii, and it's not marked on any type of, hospital records or anything like that. That's apparently, from what I hear, that they do. We don't have records from it, but that is what they do. And the local communities, if they know anybody that's coming, from the Philippines to here to work, if there's anybody that have any connection of them, they're very protective of them, obviously, because that's their people. And so it's difficult to convince people to not work for these local chemical companies, because they're not local residents, for long term. And they're also sending the money that they make back to their country and providing a livelihood for probably an entire family that might normally not have the resources from their own country. So that's a very difficult economic situation to remedy as well. It would be interesting, though, if laws were passed where the local chemical companies could only hire local residents, people that had lived here for more than a year or two. That would be interesting. And if we require them to track the health of these people before and during and after their employment, I think that would hold some accountability. So that's what I have. I don't believe there's any other pictures, Jack, that we have. I took more, I just didn't upload them all, but I will be meeting with more people today. I'm going to be interviewing some of the leaders of the movement here in the Shaka movement here in Maui, and that'll be very interesting. And then tomorrow I speak at 7 p.m. at the Maui Art Center, and we hope there's a good showing. There's a bit of media that will be turning out, and again, I'm very honored to be here. It's not easy, though. It's not easy to hear the stories of these moms and kids that are sick and not being helped in any way. The doctors completely ignore them. They tell their doctors, and they say, I live across the street from a pesticide field. Could this be it? And the doctors have no comment. They don't support them. Now, there are a few alternative doctors, right, that are supportive of some of the people have gotten very, very sick, and they've been able to turn their health around, children having cancer and all kinds of things. I'm hearing some wonderful stories there. But in general, a lot of these doctors are either not here or, they're not Western medical doctors, and they're not covered by insurance. So that makes it very difficult as well. And it's just a complete injustice. If you're getting sick from something that, a company is doing, they should have to pay for it. It should stop. The doctor should acknowledge it. The government should acknowledge it. And the people, have a right to protect their families, and it's simply not happening here. So I believe there needs to be a huge groundswell of not just activism, but of government officials and senators that actually have a conscience and do the right thing. So we're going to be calling on them to do that. So I'll be reporting again, hopefully maybe Friday morning after my talk, and after I interview more people tomorrow or today, and a little bit tomorrow. And I hope everyone is calling the EPA today. We don't know when exactly they're going to announce, but the word was that they were going to announce this week whether or not they were going to review the license for glyphosate or not, which is being sprayed all over our foods. 160 of our foods have residues of glyphosate far above what has been shown to destroy gut bacteria. 160 of our foods, and you can see that on our website under data, that EPA list. It's down towards the bottom of the glyphosate list. Here you can see the phone number to call Gina McCarthy, 202-564-4644. 4700, and it's mccarthy.gina@epa.gov. You can also email Anderson, but that's with an O, Anderson, Anderson.neal@epa.gov. He's the director of the Pesticide Review Board, and his number is 703-308-8187. I believe their mailboxes are full, but you can continue to email them as well and to tell them that you do not want glyphosate renewed, and hopefully stop it. Now, the word is that the EU was going to also announce whether or not they approve glyphosate for, I don't know, however many years. In the US, it's another 15 years. They were going to announce that on November 12th, but I got an email a few days ago saying that they've postponed it until June of 2016. So I don't know if our EPA is going to do that or not. We will only know when we hear through the media. So, either way, we're not going to stop. The EPA cannot renew glyphosate with the evidence at hand, with the hundreds of safety studies showing harm, with the World Health Organization deeming a probable carcinogen. The EPA cannot renew glyphosate without sending a clear signal that they are causing an intentional act of harm on the American people. This is an intentional act of harm if they renew glyphosate. And morally and legally, the American people and the rest of the world, I believe, will not stand for it. It will not be acceptable. We don't care that 80% of GMOs are engineered to withstand glyphosate. Farmers have farmed for thousands of years without GMOs and toxic chemicals, and they can do it again. And we are calling on the farmers to do that again. We are calling on you to grow conventional and organic crops without toxic chemicals, and to transition your land over. I know it takes a few years, but it absolutely can be done. And we ask you to look for guidance from farmers like John Kemp. He's an Amish farmer in Ohio, and his website is called Advancing Eco Agriculture. Advancing Eco Agriculture. And he teaches farmers how to grow crops that completely resist pests and weeds without toxic chemicals. There's other farmers like Howard Vliger and Bob Streit in Iowa, and there's many farmers now around. There's all kinds of farmers and methods that do not involve toxic chemicals. So we absolutely can grow food without GMOs and toxic chemicals, and we can ban glyphosate right now, and we absolutely must stand for it. So thank you to everyone who's making calls this week, who's posting, who's emailing. I have to tell you that I spoke to an EPA staff member, and he did say to me, we encourage you to continue to communicate with us using any means necessary, about what you want. They actually need us to contact them, and contact them often and frequently and in huge volumes, in order for them to have a reason to ban things like this, because they have scientific studies from the chemical companies showing safety. They legally have to acknowledge those studies. But if they have an outpouring of the population which is employing them to not allow the license for these chemicals, then they have to take our voice into consideration as well. But they can't take our voice into consideration if we don't speak up. If there's not enough of us, if we don't call them enough and email enough and protest this enough, they will have to just go along with, the chemical companies and their supposed safety studies. So we have to get louder and speak up more frequently. And every single person that does that makes a difference. And we promise that we will not stop. We will not give up, because the love for our children will never end. And we know that you love your children too, and you can count on us for partnership to create a healthy America. And we hope that we can count on you too, and that you will call today and email today. And if you're in DC, make appointments and try to meet with them. It is a very important thing to do. We also are encouraging you to call your local EPA, because if the California EPA hears from you, the Arkansas, the South Dakota, the Minnesota, Virginia, Pennsylvania, if those EPAs all hear from us, they will have to report this back to the headquarters as well. So I encourage you, if you've already called Neil and Gina, to add on your list your local EPA, and our graphic designer is putting out a meme with that, with those phone numbers, but you can also look them up through Google. Just look up, call your local EPA. There's districts, different areas for them. So there's only 9 or 10 phone numbers. So you can do that. So, okay, well, it's 11:30. I want to sign out, and I want to say thank you very, very much to everyone who's taking action. This is our country. These are our children, and this is our future that we're creating, and you are creating it by taking action. So thank you very much from moms across America and mothers across the world who are standing for healthy children and a healthy future. Thanks so much, everybody.